Hello, my name is Luke Stokes, and I gave a presentation in Rio and also in Vegas at the EOS Pavilion talking about the possibility for a foundation for the EOS mainnet blockchain. And what I wanted to do is just run through that presentation in a way that those who weren't there can kind of see it, and maybe even if it's worthwhile to translate this into other languages so we can kind of have a larger discussion about what the EOS Foundation, what it might look like, if EOS needs a foundation at all, and how it might help us. So when we talk about what we're going to go through in the presentation is, does EOS need a foundation? If so, what can it do? What would it do? And then, of course, like, who's in charge? What kind of authority would it have? What would the governance look like? And one of the major concerns I had initially with this idea, and this was kind of even before the EOS Alliance, even before that, it was like, why does a DPoS network need any kind of centralization? And I didn't see the value in it. But then over time, as I've seen the network kind of struggle to find vision and leadership and clarity on its own identity, I've been thinking more and more about how something like this is needed. And of course, my work with EOS DAC for the last year and a half or more has gotten me thinking about a container that's needed to hold this, which might be a decentralized autonomous organization. And under that model, there might be a way for this entity to exist and still represent the community. So when we look at other blockchains in the space, the Cardano Foundation, the Ethereum Foundation, Tezos Foundation, they have millions and millions of dollars. They have a lot of support that they can bring to the communities that they serve and support. And as you may know, Block One, that developed the EOS.io software, isn't really able to do that for the EOS mainnet specifically. The SEC ruled that if they were to participate, and if they, even the level of participation that they did have was seen as a potential securities violation. So these are real concerns that the EOS community has to work through, and limitations that we have, and that we don't have millions of dollars that can be focused on this due to the way the relationship between Block One, the United States government, and the EOS mainnet is. So we kind of think through this and say, well, how are we going to get around that? Do we need a foundation? Clearly, these other entities find value in a foundation, and they spend a lot of money supporting those foundations. And if we do need a foundation, what could it do? So when we talk about it, I think about some of the problems that we face by not having an entity that represents EOS mainnet is like, who does the media go to talk to EOS? And we've already seen just example after example where unfortunately the media just does not get accurate information about EOS and the EOS blockchain. So there's a bunch of misinformation. There's articles that are full of fear, uncertainty, and doubt. There's just inaccuracies, and it kind of makes us all look bad. And it actually can, I think, hinder the value of the network and the way people perceive us as a community. There's also the idea of, where do they go to find conference speakers? What if we had a speakers bureau, as an example, a place where anyone in the outside could come to and say, hey, who are your best community members that really understand the technology, that can speak well and represent you well? And that would be something potentially the foundation could facilitate. And there's also, as I kind of alluded to earlier, there's this lack of clarity between Block One, between EOS, between the difference between EOS and EOS.io and all these other great chains, and also kind of the decentralized nature of the community of block producers. If you talk to some block producers, you'll probably hear that when they engage corporations or companies or even governments, there's this misunderstanding like, oh, you're part of Block One, or you launched EOS, you're EOS, and they have to explain this complicated thing, saying, no, we're just one of many block producers, we're just participants in the community, and there isn't really kind of an entity that somebody can talk to and feel like they're getting an authority about what EOS actually is and how they can participate in it. So I think as it relates to EOS mainnet, that particular EOS.io chain, I think it's important to have a place where people can go. And also, I think we have specific challenges within our network. We have a lot of usage, we have a high token price, we have certain distributions and things that we need to work through that may not impact other EOS.io chains the same way. And so having, for example, our own GitHub repo, having our own mechanism for dealing with code level issues that may not be a high priority for Block One to fix in terms of EOS.io, but might be a high priority specific to EOS mainnet. And having a place to have those conversations and decide those things, I think, is really important. And also, I think it's important to have a container, a space where we can really decide as a community. And when I say community, that's a really loaded term. What does that really mean? And to me, it could mean token holders. It could mean token traders who provide liquidity and price discovery. It could mean exchanges, block producers, application owners for sure, application developers. It could mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. The block producers for sure. So we have to, and obviously the content creators as well, who stake their reputation as part of this. So we have to kind of figure out what is it we all want and who gets to decide what that is. And it's been a little bit chaotic up to this point because, again, Block One hasn't been able to provide as much, I think, vision and leadership specific to EOS mainnet. And there are reasons for that as it relates to the SEC and things like that. So having an entity that can facilitate that conversation, I think, could be really important. So this is what we have as far as our mission draft right now. The EOS Foundation is a nonprofit built into the blockchain itself that serves the EOS community through facilitating code, capital, and communication, and by acting as an advocate for EOS to the outside world. Now, if that sounds interesting to you, if you feel that that's something that's needed, then I hope you'll participate. I hope you engage in this conversation, and I hope you'll engage with those who are important stakeholders in EOS mainnet, those who have tokens, those who have invested their time and energy into this network. Because I think it's important that we come together and represent the value that we're all trying to protect and grow here in a way that makes sense. And I'm not at all interested in just one group of people going and saying, hey, we represent EOS. It's just not going to work that way. But at the same time, if we can build a container for people to feel that their voice is being heard and they're well represented, and I do think a decentralized autonomous organization could do that, that's a whole different conversation. That's something that's very interesting to me. So what could it do? It could help with onboarding new users specifically to EOS mainnet, onboarding new developers, again, specifically to EOS mainnet, onboarding enterprises who want to build here, helping with communication and helping people understand the differences between, again, the block producers, the mainnet, other EOS.io chains, and all of that. Some example projects they could work on, like we talked about, a speakers bureau, where it could facilitate conferences that are looking for EOS speakers, developer resources that are specific to EOS mainnet, and a legal defense fund, which might be kind of interesting. A lot of the block producers who are participating in the governance of the chain might appreciate having some kind of legal defense that they can turn to if their jurisdiction they're in ever has a problem with what they're doing. And then again, communications and conferences. We have different events that are put on by the community, and they're kind of, it's not always clear who's going to pay for them, who's going to facilitate and organize them. And this is something that if a group of people could come together under the banner of the foundation, they might get more support to do something at a larger scale and have more engagement by a wider group of the community, which I think would be really exciting. So the main aspects of the foundation would be code, capital, and communication. And we really look at this as an opportunity to have progress on chain, have the transparency of decision making, have multi-sig as far as how any funds that the foundation manages would be used. And again, as a nonprofit, making it very clear this entire entity exists to provide value to the community and not to extract value for itself. So of course we have to ask, well, how could it be funded? There's two major ways that we're looking at this. It could be funded through donations by maybe even Block One or the community of block producers or other value creators in the network, or it could be funded by inflation or even savings. So we have certain levels of value that haven't been clearly defined as far as how it's being used. In the original plan for the EOS mainnet, there was going to be 4% of inflation going to worker proposal system and 1% going to block producers. Well, that 4% hasn't been used to date, and there has been an event where they burned a whole bunch of those tokens. And so the idea that if the foundation at some point in the future proves itself to be trustworthy, proves itself to accurately reflect the views of the community, then maybe it would make sense that some of those funds could be used to help promote the community and help build value in the community specific to EOS mainnet. Until that point, maybe donations is the way to go. These are the things that we want to discuss. And if we went to a donation-only model, there might be an opportunity over time for it to demonstrate that it is creating value for the network. And then, of course, who makes the decisions? There's a couple different ways we can do this. My personal preference is a decentralized autonomous organization. In that style, you have token holders that eventually vote for stewards, and those stewards are elected to champion a specific project or goal that they want to set for the mainnet. And through that, through their term, that's their action item. That's what they're called to do. And they work with other people to set up worker proposals and different mechanisms for ensuring that something valuable is created for the network in a way that probably otherwise wouldn't be there. In the DPoS system of governance, and when I say governance, it's really just a fancy word to say who gets to make the decisions, right? In a DPoS system, it would be just similar to how we elect block producers. It's just every single token holder gets to directly vote on what's going to happen, kind of like the referendum system or other systems like that. And that's still a possibility as well. There is sometimes a disconnect in terms of concerns about who owns the EOS token may not always represent the entire community. The large token holders definitely are a super significant part of the community. They provide, they have the most skin in the game, from my opinion, and they're critically important. But there are also many other aspects of value creators in the network, and some of those groups of people don't get completely rewarded for their time and efforts that they put into the system to create value. So when we talk about who's going to be in charge, how are we going to figure out how decisions are made? If we have an entity that claims to represent EOS, how are we going to decide how that entity carries itself? These are really important discussions that we have to figure out. And so when we talk about a decentralized autonomous organization, the initial ideas that we've discussed is having a separate token, and not even really a token, something we're calling a value receipt distribution. So this value receipt would be a non-transferable NFT, a non-fungible token, this non-transferable token that would be initially kind of distributed and issued to all manners of different value creators in the network. And the vision for this would be block producers, exchanges, token holders, application developers, application owners, all the different projects in the space that we, through conversation and community, decide have created value. And that would be hopefully a very open process. It'd be there'd be a lot of opportunity for dialogue about that process, and we would potentially give more value receipts to some people than others, and that would be, again, an ongoing discussion to hopefully get a wide distribution of these value receipts in a way that everyone feels that those with the most skin in the game, the most stake in the system, have the largest voice and who they want representing them in a foundation. And then from that process, another way to get a value receipt would be through a direct donation. So those who contribute real EOS and real value to the foundation would also get issued this non-transferable value receipt to their account. And these value receipts would give them the ability to elect the stewards. And that would be a basic voting process. There'd be a time period for that. We're exploring whether it'd be like 6 months or maybe even 3 months, where those terms, those stewards would serve. And if there was value that was contributed through donations or through some other mechanism, they would then make decisions on how that money would be spent. And so there would be full transparency on chain with multi-signature account systems between those elected stewards to decide, how the money is going to be used to support the EOS mainnet. So this is the kind of general overview of what we've been thinking about, and we've been having discussions about this. We haven't moved forward too quickly because, again, it's really important to us that we don't just show up with an entity and say, hey, we should do this, but we want it to actually represent the community. We want it to be something that those who really value the EOS mainnet network can see themselves being a part of and actually helping form and shape. We're not going to come out of the gate with all the answers to exactly everything the foundation is going to do, because ultimately that's going to be up to the stewards. The stewards who get elected will be the ones responsible to the community that believes in them to deliver on something that they feel is important. And through that process, I think we can come to a more organic way to determine the vision for how the EOS mainnet is going to be and what it's going to be and what it's going to look like for 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the road. So again, the idea is code, capital, and communication. These are 3 areas that we think that the foundation can provide specifically to EOS mainnet. And when it comes to capital, that could be supporting projects that are important for the value of everyone. When it comes to code, that could be specific changes to EOS mainnet or specific libraries that we all feel would be valuable for the community. And when it comes to communication, again, that could be a speakers bureau, it could be media and PR outlets and marketing. It could be a number of things, again, specific to EOS mainnet. So the call to action is, if you want to help launch the EOS Foundation, an on-chain DAO with transparent governance, please reach out to me. I've been asked to be the executive director by Brock Pierce, who has been funding this initiative and other initiatives like it to try to create some form of synergy within our community. We are a very decentralized community. We have all different opinions on how things should go and where they should go. And I think only together are we going to build something amazing and great. And I think a structure like a DAO would help us all be represented and not feel like, you know, somebody's coming in to have undue influence on the community that we love. So I'd love to hear from you about this. You can reach out to me at luke.stokes@gmail.com, or you can reach me at Luke Stokes on Twitter or on Telegram. I'm also at Steemit at Luke Stokes. And I look forward to opening up this conversation to more and more people as we start to finalize, like, what could this actually look like? What could the community do together to build something great? And what is the vision for EOS going forward? Thank you so much for watching this. I really appreciate it, and I hope you have a great day. Thanks.